Before we begin this digital event, we want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land. As many of us are watching in locations all around Australia, we pay our respects to the traditional owners of the country on which we all live and work. We recognise their continuing connection to land, waters, and community, and pay our respects to them and their culture, and to the elders both past, present, and future.
Hi everybody, and welcome to another series of New Breakpoint. My name's Simon Waite. Have we got a great show lined up for you today? Today's show is a bit different to how we've done things before, but if you've got questions, just like you could before, you can put them into the chat window. Myself, Anthony, and a few other folks will be here to answer them throughout the show. Stick around though, because one or two of the best questions will be answered by our guest today, Anthony Borton from GitHub, who will be taking us through modernising CI/CD workflows. If you do want to find out more information about what's presented on today's show, also keep an eye out on the chat window, because we'll post links to additional resources there once we get to the back end of the show. And also keep an eye on your inbox in the next few days, because we'll send an email that will include details about how you can access this video and share it with others that might be interested in this topic. And now I'd like to welcome my guest onto today's show. We're joined by Anthony Borton from GitHub. Anthony has just joined the organization there as a solution engineer manager for Asia Pacific. Anthony, welcome to the show. Tell us a bit about yourself and the role you have at GitHub.
Hi, Simon. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm really excited to be your first guest for season 2. Looking at some of the content, some of the guests that you've had in the first season of New Breakpoint, I've got some big shoes to fill. So thank you for that. My role at GitHub is looking after a really talented group of solution engineers across Australia and Japan. And I'm really, really honored to do that. Prior to accepting this role, I've been a DevOps architect with Microsoft for the past 3.5 years, where I've worked with some of our largest customers to help them accelerate their DevOps transformation.
All right, great. So look, today's session is all about modernizing CI/CD workflows. Continuous integration, continuous deployment is not a new idea. It's been around probably for well over a decade for early adopters. What are some of the benefits or advantages that you see in people doing modernization work on their existing continuous integration and deployment pipelines?
So what I've seen in the field is, as you state, CI/CD is not new. Been around for a long time, and the initial benefits of some of the very early systems, of course, was just that centralized build environment. We went in there and added some unit testing in there. And of course, we've come so much further over the years than those very simple pipelines or those very simple workflows. What I do find, however, is in the field, I still come across teams that are still using these very, very basic CI/CD pipelines. They've been written by someone else. They do the job they're designed to do reasonably well, but they could do so much more. And that's, I guess, I wanted to, in the short time we've got today, talk about some of the things that we can do. And I'll use GitHub Actions as an example here today, Simon.
Okay, great. Look, you don't need me taking up extra screen space while you're doing the great work that you do with this demo. So I'm going to hop off the stream at this point and hand over control to you, Anthony. I'll be back a little bit later to help with the Q&A and wrap up the show. But in the meantime, good luck, and I'm looking forward to this. Should be great.
All right, thank you very much, Simon. That's fantastic. Let's get into the demo. So to get this started, what you're looking at on my screen is, well, not much at all. It's an empty screen. I've just received a brand new machine from work. Let's say that. It's a great new operating system in here, but I don't have my developer tools. I don't have the libraries that I need for working on these applications. So what I'd probably be faced with is likely hours of work to set up the environment that I need. So before we get too far into CI/CD, I want to take the opportunity to show a couple of other little sneaky things along the way. I'm just going to go and let's get ourselves into GitHub. There we are. So here we are in GitHub. I'm in an organization called Coffee Roasters Online. They're a great little business, fictitious as they are. And what they do is they source these great single origin, ethically sourced coffee beans that everyone loves. And they're looking at doing some work to get online so that people in the time of the pandemic can buy their products quickly and easily. There's a scenario for you. So I'll go into one of the repos in here. And what I would normally do here is go across to code, and I'd probably go in and I'd clone the repo down to my local machine. And I still can, of course. But I need all of the tools to make, to allow me to do the development work. So another scenario here is oftentimes we jump between different applications that we're coding with. So we might be working with a Ruby application 1 minute, and if we've got the skills, maybe we're over in .NET or .NET Core, and they each require different things. So having all of those installed and kept up to date on our machines is quite a bit of work. So what I'm going to do differently is I'm going to go over here into code, switch over to cloud, and I'm going to use a new feature called code spaces. With GitHub code spaces, I can say I want to create a new code space. I can choose the appropriate size of the machine that I need for the application. I won't create one just for now, but I've already got one here. You can see that it's been running for a little while, and I'll go ahead and select it. What that's going to do is that's going to provision my development environment for me in the cloud. And it can be uniquely configured with all of the extensions that I need, all of the libraries and everything that I want ready to go. Now, this is fantastic for many different scenarios, including new people coming to join the team. It could be that I no longer need to buy the most high-end hardware for all of my developers for the occasional project they're working on that needs all those resources. For most, if not all of you, you'll probably see or recognize this familiar screen. What you're looking at is the VS Code type interface down the left-hand side. I've got my extensions here, and I can go and add all of the extensions that I need in order to work efficiently in modifying this application. I'll go up here and I can have a look, go to my source. And VS Code Spaces isn't just about that visualization. I can set breakpoints, I can debug into it, I can do all of the things you would expect if this experience was running locally on my machine, but I can do it securely and quickly and easily provision from the cloud. If I go in here and have a look, I'll go into my source, into components, and this is a really, really simple little application. Okay, so I can make changes in here and do everything I want to do. So this was a good reason for us to have a little peek at VS Code. What I might do is I might just change and create a new branch. The new branch is going to be called Anthony, what are we going to do? Let's say Anthony Email. That's probably a really bad branch, but let's go ahead and do it anyway. I've created a new branch for the piece of work I'm going to be working on. I'm going to go up here into the application, and I'm not a great programmer. Ask anyone on any of the teams I've worked with. Those skills developed over years have basically atrophied over an equal number of years now, as sad as it is to lose a skill. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take advantage of an AI-powered pair programmer. How does that work? And again, I know this isn't CI/CD, but it's a little sidebar that I thought might be exciting. I'm going to go and add a comment. I'm going to say, let's check if the value is an email address or not. Now that's just a comment, and I'll press enter. Now, what's happening here is GitHub Copilot has been trained with so much information. It's looked at the comment and it's suggesting, based on the language that I'm using, what I might like to do here. I can keep that, I can change it. I'll hit tab and say, well, that's a good start, and I'll press enter. Again, simply from the comment that it's seen, it's saying, well, here's the next piece of code we think you want. And I can cycle through options. But for me, that looks pretty good. That looks all right. Done. So in this scenario, rather than watch me have to do some coding, I've used Copilot to help me write a very, very simple function, of course. Okay, really amazing and well worth a little peek while it's in a private technology preview to see exactly what it can do. I was surprised the other day when I was in a markdown file writing some notes, and with Copilot active, it actually tried to recommend what I should write next. I thought that was truly, truly amazing. But that's not what we're here to see today. That's just a little teaser. So what I've done is I've made some changes there. I'm going to go up and have a look. And sure enough, there is my code. I'm going to put a message in there. Added the new is email function. Whoop, little typo. That's what I'm consistently good at. So there's my little message. Okay, I'll go ahead and commit that. That's fine. I didn't stage it. And I might go ahead and push it. Okay, that looks good. So I'm pushing that code in. So I'll probably leave that there for the moment, although I could easily stay. I'm going to dive back over and let's have a look at this in the browser. And what it's seen is that it's recognized that incoming change and it's proposing that I might create a pull request. I'll go ahead and say, yes, I want to create that pull request. Just going to change the base repository there. All right, and that should look pretty good. All right, so it's ready for me to start my pull request, and I'd be a very diligent programmer and put some comments in there. Do as I say, not as I do necessarily. So I'm going to create the pull request. Okay, now that's a standard workflow, absolutely, for anyone, for any developer. So right now, what that's done is that has triggered a CI/CD workflow. You can see that in action down here now. So there's no conflicts, that's nice, but a workflow has triggered. And what I want to take you through now is, let's go into here. I'm going to go into my GitHub Actions, and sure enough, there's the workflow that's triggered. You'll see a visualization of it here. And as part of the CI side of things, we're going to go and do the build. But with the visualization, what you can see here is there's multiple ways that this can go. And this is an example of some of the maturing or modernization that we can look at that can really make things a whole lot better. So the build has been successful. As part of that, we could have run our unit tests and done a whole lot more. It's detected that this was triggered by a pull request. It's now going to route this down to an environment called deploy review. And this is something that I really like about workflows. So a developer makes some changes. It could be the work of hours, a small batch. We go ahead and we check that in, we create a pull request, we identify others that we want to review the pull request, and they look at the code. But sometimes they want to be able to see what's happening as well. You know, see the results of the changes you've made, and maybe they don't have the ability to execute it on their machine or the time to do that. So what we're doing here is we're actually going to go and deploy this for the pull request workflow. And we're going to do that in a very, very smart way. While that's happening, let's have a look at what the workflow looks like. So I'm going to go into my workflow, go to deploy. What you'll see here is a standard GitHub Actions workflow. I've got a couple of different triggers here. We go ahead and do the build. Okay, nothing too exciting just there. I then go and use some great actions created by our partners at Docker. Okay, they make life just so much easier to work with containers. And then we get into our first environment. I've called the environment deploy to review. It checks to see if this was triggered by the pull request event. And if it was, it starts this particular workflow. We go and fetch secrets, we log in, and we're going to go and create a specific slot. Okay, this is an Azure web app. So it goes and looks at a particular slot and it names that slot in a very, very clever way for us. Let's see how that's progressing. I'll go back to my actions. And what you can see here is the build has completed and it has gone and deployed it into this environment called Deploy Review. And it's given me a URL, cduniverse-ab-review PR-17. Where'd that come from? If you look up here, you can see the pull request that was created was pull request 17. So it creates that unique endpoint for me. I can right click, open it, and there's the application. This was, again, a really simple little test application just so we can deploy quickly and easily. So I'll get rid of it. But that gives this unique and easily identifiable endpoint where someone that's doing the pull review can come and have a look at the code, as well as, have a look at the output, the deployed output of it as part of the pull request workflow. I think that's really, really helpful. Okay, let's go back to here. So that's all achieved just with these lines of code that you see here. As far as other options for modernization, just while I've got it on the screen in front of me, I can easily do many other things. I've got other examples where, of course, you want to do linting. I love using GitHub's super linter that has so many different languages in there. But in this case, I do my container scanning. And for the sake of the demonstration, there are actually some vulnerabilities. I've taken that out just by simply commenting it out in the interests of time. But you want to do as many things as you can in a modern CI/CD workflow. You want to automate all of these things. This is part of that whole shift left for both security, which I'll come back to in a moment, as well as shift left on testing. Okay, if I go back to my workflow now, I'll have a look at my pull request. I'll go in and have a look at that pull request, and all of the requirements have been met. Now, of course, you should, or best practice is that we would have gone and specified one or more other, reviewers to examine the code and have a look at things. Let's imagine that that's been done. I'll go ahead and merge that pull request and say go. So after it's gone through that pull request, after it's been deployed to an environment where we can go and check and test that, now we're happy to continue, and that's moved on. I don't need the branch anymore, so I'll delete that branch. And our actions have gone further, and they're now continuing. So this time, we are going to rebuild it, but now because it's no longer part of the pull request workflow, it's a standard CI, it's going to now start deploying this code off to our staging environment. That brings me, while we wait for that to complete, that brings me to the next thing I want to talk about, and that is these environments and other practices for CI/CD. And I want to lead into environments and protecting environments, and also how we manage secrets. So what are these environments? If I go up here into settings, I can go over here to environments, and you can see that I've got these environments created. They're really easy to create. They're just labels. I can create a new environment, give it a name, anything I want, and the environment's created. So I've created names, production, staging, review lab. And then when you see here, I've done something extra with production. What is this? Let's click on it. I can configure protected environments. For many of the developers watching this now, you'll be familiar with the idea of branch protection, a very common, very useful pattern for you. So I can go and create my main branch. I can then create other branches, but I want to protect main. I want to make sure that we can't commit directly into main. I want to make sure the only way is via pull requests, and I can set up all manner of rules and things. It's a well-known pattern for teams to use. So GitHub decided to follow that same idea, where we have the ability to create required reviewers for pull requests. We have required reviewers for environments. We want to ensure that we have these environments and they're protected and certain people must sign off. So I can say I require reviewers, and I can list people or teams here that must approve this before it actually will start the workflow to deploy into the environment. Now, when we're deploying to production, that role might be someone that's typically could be a release manager, whatever labels you choose to use in your organization, but that's where they would normally be. All they need is read access to this repo. So it's a great time for people that wouldn't normally be writing code. They can also be people that would approve deployments. I can set a wait timer if I want to. So if I want to have a minimum amount of time for this application to sit in staging before going any further, then I'm well able to configure that. I can save that protection rule now. And there are other capabilities. You're going to see this. Actually, let's have a look now. I'll come back and we'll talk about secrets in a moment. So if I go back to my workflow, let's have a look at what it's doing. So by now, the deployment to staging has completed. It's given me, again, a new endpoint that I can quickly and easily select and go and have a look at the results of that application deployment. It's now waiting, and that's because the production environment is a protected environment. In this example, Anthony has got to approve the request. I can go up to my GitHub notifications, and there's a new type of notification there for these approvals. I can go and integrate with other solutions like Teams. In fact, I think I've got an example of that here. So as part of my CI/CD workflow, I can push details out to Teams or Slack or any other tool you're using, and it can publish really descriptive information about exactly what's going on. I can see here that we've got a CI trigger occurred for the Coffee Roasters Online web application. I can see who and when. This one's a little old, a couple of weeks. I can see what's going on, and I've got these great links that will take me into more information. I can also see there's an in progress workflow occurring down there. So there's lots of other things we can do. For now, as the person that needs to approve the production deployment, I can go through whatever quality gates that I want. I can see it's been deployed here. I can go and have a look at the test results, all the things I need to do. And then I can say, yes, I'm ready to approve this to go into production. All checks have passed and the team has been notified. Now I approve that, and it could be multiple approvers if needed. It could be someone from a given team. That's now going to trigger that deployment, and you can see that that job's now queued and ready to go, and we're now pushing out to deploy that into the production environment. These are some of the things that we can easily do to improve our CI, or in this case, more probably the CD environment. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about secrets just before we go too much further, and a little bit about DevSecOps. So when I went into my environments, okay, on the way there, let's visit secrets. These are my repository secrets. We've had those in GitHub for a long time. I can also create organization scoped secrets. So values, tokens, credentials, whatever I need at the organization level, and then narrow them down to the repositories. But then I can also go down and specify environment secrets. Invariably with CI/CD, you are dealing with secrets one way or another. If I go into this environment, I'll go into production, scroll down, and you can see I've got a deploy key. So I can go and add a new secret here, whatever I need to put in there. And those secrets are not accessible to the workflow until the approver has approved it and that gives the runner the ability to access those specific secrets. Okay, that's a few different options. So in GitHub, we can have organization scoped secrets, we can have repo scoped secrets, or secrets specifically down to each of the different environments. We can also choose to centralize them, of course, and there's a lot of merit in considering that. We can use Azure features like Azure Key Vault to have that really nice central management of secrets that we can access during our CI/CD workflows. Putting them into a Key Vault means I've got really powerful auditing of not only the changes, but all access to those secrets. There's also some great online documentation that once we've got all of our secrets in Azure Key Vault, we can automate the process of rotating those secrets. Okay, rotating those secrets is about simply saying that if there has been a compromise or a leak of a secret, then by rotating them at a certain frequency, a regular cadence, we've minimized the time with which those secrets can be misused. When we deploy Azure DevOps, for example, I know that in our workflow, the first thing we do on a deployment is we change all the secrets. We do the deployment. And the last thing we do is we change all the secrets again. If there is any inkling of any form of attack, we can change those secrets at the click of a button. So centralized options for secret management like Azure Key Vault are a really powerful choice and option. So that's a little bit about secrets. Other things that we do with our CI/CD, I'm just going to jump out to a different repo within Coffee Roasters. And what I've got here is a slightly different workflow. But in this repository, I've also enabled extra security. A common thing to find in CI/CD workflows is often a whole lot of security-related things. It's a great place to do it. In the in the dark ages of CI/CD or developing and deploying software, for some organizations, security may have been a pen test of the website either just before or just after it goes live. That didn't work out so well for us as an industry. So a shift left on security is all about checking security earlier. One of the most powerful things that I love about GitHub is the moment I go and put my code into a repository here, I've got the ability of using Dependable Alerts. Dependable Alerts helps me secure my software supply chain. It looks at all of the packages that I'm using. It knows if there have been any vulnerabilities announced for any of those previous versions, and it automatically creates PRs for me. I've got a couple of examples in here. It automatically creates PRs saying, well, look, you really need to bump this library from this version, which has a known vulnerability, to this version in which that vulnerability has been fixed. Dependable Alerts automatically goes in there and creates these PRs to bump those from vulnerable versions of packages to versions that have that vulnerability closed. So that doesn't actually require CI/CD. I've got the ability of using CI/CD with things like code scanning and code QL. This is a more powerful option for me. And that goes in there and looks for code vulnerabilities in my code, things like the infamous zip slip and other things along those lines. And the way that that's achieved is through the use of GitHub Actions. I can go in here and have a look at code QL, and this is a workflow, an action that goes and runs that code scanning, and I can trigger that on a variety of different things. I can do that as part of my CI/CD workflow, or I can do that scheduled to happen at night, or by default, it actually does both of those things. So that's another really powerful thing that we can do with CI/CD. All right, so there's a few little things there, but really the key takeaway there was a couple of little teasers. Make sure you have a look at GitHub code spaces. If you want to go and have a look at the technical preview of GitHub Copilot, it's a truly amazing thing. I'm sure you'll enjoy having a look at. In looking at your CI/CD workflows, have a look at what you can do. The more that you can put into those, the better it's going to be. The repeatable, mature processes can make life a heck of a lot easier. The example that I've shown you here went and automatically recognized the pull request. Let me just make sure allowed you to see the code there for that. Go to that workflow, deploy. Now, it was a comparatively easy option here that after the application was built, I went in and basically said, if this is triggered with a pull request, this is what we want to go and do. We used the environment tag here. We identified the name of the environment, and we used the output from the action that went and deployed the application. It emitted the URL, so we grabbed that URL and made that available for us. Absolutely fantastic. We could have done container scanning here, and then the rest of the deployment works reasonably well. So hopefully there's, in the short time we've had available to us, there's hopefully been a few little things, a few little takeaways there that have maybe been quite helpful. What do you think, Simon?
Anthony, as always, super fascinating. I do love code spaces and Copilot. Haven't had hands-on with either of them just yet, but I've definitely seen the buzz about the place for them. And I particularly think code spaces in the first instance is going to be quite revolutionary for a lot of developers and will open up a bunch of opportunity for people that maybe haven't had it before. Again, thank you very much for a really informative session. Hang around, folks, if you are still with us. Anthony's going to be answering some live questions in a few minutes. But I did want to ask just one question to you, Anthony. So, you've obviously spent today looking at GitHub Actions. We know and love GitHub as a member of the broader Microsoft family, but are there similar sorts of ways that you can achieve this, say, with another product, say, like Azure DevOps, for instance?
Yeah, certainly. So, yeah, I'm a little biased. I love GitHub Actions. But of course, I've been using Azure pipelines for many, many, many years and love that too. Regardless of the CI/CD framework you use, maybe this presentation is just a reminder. For anything that's in active development, have a look at the CI/CD. What can you add into that? Not just for new applications, but for applications that are still under maintenance. Anytime you actually have to go and manually open up a command window, run commands when you're deploying, that's a bad thing. So yes, you can do pretty much everything I've shown you here, one way or another, with a variety of different platforms. Clearly I was a little bit naughty by showing some non-CI/CD things there at the start that are GitHub specific. But yeah, look for options to parallelize what you're doing. In an example that I didn't actually get time to show you here, when I had the linter as a container, and for large applications, I was having some linting sometimes taking up to 40, 50 minutes to do. It was really big code bases. Can you do that in parallel? So while you're running your tests and things, have your linting going on in a different job over here, and just try and minimize that. The counter to trying to do everything in CI/CD is it makes those CIs take a heck of a lot longer. So it's a constant battle between making them give us results in a timely manner and getting as much into those workflows as we can.
All great points. Look, again, thank you very much for that. For everybody who's watching, we do want to find out how we can improve, make these sessions more meaningful and valuable to you. So please take the opportunity to fill in a short survey that we'll be sharing in the chat momentarily. Please also give us a follow on Twitter at Microsoft AU Dev. We have a great team of people there, including myself, answering questions or giving guidance on a regular basis. But now is an opportunity. We're going to switch over to live and we'll get to questions and have a chat with those of you that are here today. Anthony, I'm going to say goodbye for this section, and I'll see you in a few moments.
See you in a second.